October 12, 2005, item number 96. Today's guest is Joe Hayashi, Senior Director of Product Management for Yahoo.
Podcast411.com. Listen different.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the Podcast 411 podcast. Now, on the last show, for the news and notes, we talked about the new podcast.yahoo.com service that was launched on Monday. And rather than just speculate, today we went out and got the Senior Director of Product Management from Yahoo to come in and talk with us. So we're going to go ahead and get to that interview in a few minutes, but first, a couple quick news and notes. Yesterday, on Tuesday, me and the wife went to the doctor, and what you're about to hear, and it should be starting right now, is the youngest podcaster in the world. At less than 14 weeks, you are listening to our future child. Not one to exploit one's children, but there you go. Well, that's going to do it for the news and notes for us today. We're going to go ahead right now and get into the interview with Joe, the Senior Director of Product Management for Yahoo. Here we go. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Now, I will go ahead and give you the traditional first question, and that is, what was your first computer?
Let's see. My first computer was a Commodore 64.
A very, very common answer on the show. That and the VIC-20 are like probably half the audience.
I think I wanted one of those, but I didn't get one of those, so I had to wait.
Well, the 64 was better.
Yeah, it was. It was better.
Have you been listening to many podcasts?
I have been.
Okay.
These last few months, I've definitely been immersed in podcasting.
What are some of the ones that you're listening to now on a regular basis?
I think I actually started listening to podcasting with some of Doug Kaye's IT Conversations podcasts. Mm-hmm. Kind of branched out and listened to a bunch of other stuff. But the stuff that I find that I have really stuck with is the IT Conversation stuff.
I had Doug on here back in July. I wanted to bring you on, and first off was to thank Yahoo for helping promote podcasting.
Well, we're excited to do it.
And I guess the first question I would start out with is basically why? What is the value prop? Why is Yahoo getting into podcasting?
Well, podcasting has definitely been a great phenomena over the last many months. There's obviously both a lot of mainstream media that's kind of jumping into the podcasting space and starting to distribute their content via this mechanism, so that's great. But I think in a lot of ways the most interesting stuff is what's happening in the podcasting community, because I think the barriers are a lot lower to creating content now and distributing content. We're just seeing an explosion of types of content, all kinds of great stuff, interesting stuff that would never have had a chance to have an audience, now have an audience. And so as a media phenomena, we're really excited about podcasting. We're listeners here at Yahoo, and so I think we're sort of fans from that standpoint. I guess one of the ways that we think about it is that podcasting for a consumer is just a lot more convenient in a lot of ways, kind of on demand, when you can listen to it when and sort of how you want to. And so we see that as kind of a long-term trend, and that just makes sense, and that's going to get better and better. As a company that has a lot of users and has a lot of media, it just makes sense for us to take advantage of this because there's a lot of great content. And so it's a natural fit, I think, to sort of what we do generally with media. So it really sort of fits with our strategy, fits with a lot of stuff that we have, and it's a really exciting proposition.
I noticed on the podcast page for Yahoo that there are two groups. There is a most popular and highly rated.
Yep.
How is the methodology done to determine where you rank in that? Because, that's going to be one of the biggest questions that people are going to be asking going on is if you're a podcaster. How is it that you get ranked and move around in that ranking, and how often is it updated?
Right. So we just launched yesterday. So in terms of the last part of the question, in terms of how often it gets updated, we're kind of working through sort of that process. Our goal is obviously to update that pretty regularly. We're watching it pretty carefully and sort of tuning in and want to make sure that we kind of have our systems in place. So right now, I think we've updated it a few times since we launched. It's unlike the tags in that it's not truly live, but obviously we just kind of run a process and we update that stuff. So for the highly rated stuff, it's pretty clear. The most highly rated content by the users is the stuff that makes it on that list. for the most popular stuff, that's really driven right now off of the subscriptions. And one of the conversations that we're having is, what is the best way to represent what's most popular? Obviously, a lot of people just click the listen button as well. And so we're trying to figure out sort of what the best way to do that is. And that's how we do it now. Our expectation is since this is a beta, we're going to get a lot of feedback and we're going to tune that type of stuff. And so we're very interested in what the podcasters think about what algorithms work well and that kind of stuff. So we're open to suggestions there, but that's basically how it works right now.
Well, what I would say, most people probably are concerned that someone's just going to go out and register 1,000 different Yahoo email accounts and then come in and subscribe to their own show 1,000 times.
Yahoo certainly, as a long-standing internet company, has a lot of mechanisms in place to look for that type of issue. So, we have a lot of user-generated content across all the Yahoo properties. So we have a lot of mechanisms in place to obviously monitor and watch and help control those types of things. So that's why we're kind of watching that very carefully, is we want to understand how that's working and if there are ways that people might abuse it. We feel like we're in a good position because we've been doing this for a long time to get a handle on that. It's not to say that people aren't out there devising new schemes to every day.
If there's rules, people always look for loopholes in the rules.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a concern. I think that we feel pretty good about it right now, but it's something that we're watching pretty carefully.
Is there a Yahoo podcast in the future?
I believe so. Sure, absolutely. I think again, this is something that you see lots and lots of companies doing. Absolutely, I think that we'll offer our own content over time in this format.
So you have no plans yet at this point in time, so you don't know what the format of the show would be, whether it be a variety show picking out other podcasts, or it would be just the goings-on and talking about what's going on in the whole technology industry.
I wouldn't say that we have no plans. Obviously, Yahoo serves a lot of audio content today. Mm-hmm. You can go to the site and you can find and hear lots of stuff today, whether it's earnings calls or stuff from NPR. There's lots of stuff that's available through the site today. And I think over time, we'll take the stuff that makes sense and we'll offer it in formats that are convenient to users. And definitely podcasting is going to be one of those formats.
On your front page for podcast.yahoo.com, you've got 8 featured podcasts, 4 new and noteworthy, and 4 staff picks. And
yep.
By the way, I like them because you've got Ann at Eat Feed and Jesse from The Sound of Young America, both of
yep.
who have been guests on here before, and also Steve from Escape Pod. So
yep.
I like your picks.
Okay.
I have a question from one of my listeners, which was they wanted to know how you go about doing these picks.
Yahoo has kind of a long tradition of editorial picks. Back when Yahoo first started, it was a directory of internet sites, right? There was an editorial team that are expert surfers whose job is to really sort of know what's out there on the internet, and they obviously maintain that directory, and there's still a team that does that. And we're actually leveraging members of that team to help us with these podcasts. So part of what that team gets to do is they get to go out and they get to listen to stuff, find great content, and help us basically decide what to feature. So we have humans, our expert editorial staff, something that Yahoo's been doing for 10 years, basically help us with that.
For the listeners, what is your job and Yahoo and how it relates to podcasting?
So I work in product management. The function that I do is I basically work with I have product managers on my team, and product management generally is to try to understand what product to build. So you go do research, talk to a lot of customers, see what else is out there in the marketplace, and you work with the engineering team and the design team and the QA team, kind of all the different groups of people who basically build a product, and you kind of basically define that product and bring it to market. So that function is basically to understand what the right product is to build and make sure that happens in a nutshell. It's more complicated than that, but that's basically what we do.
So you were the product manager behind podcasting.
Lee Ott was actually he's the main product manager on this, and so Lee worked for me, but we obviously worked very closely on this effort. And he was the guy that actually, if you go to the Yahoo search blog, you can see the note from Lee. And he also sent out a bunch of notes to the podcasting community. I think there's a Yahoo Groups podcasters group that received a note from Lee, and a number of people that we talked to that also got a note from Lee. So Lee's actually the guy that made it all happen.
Feedback mechanism. Give an example. Someone comes on, they see their podcast is listed in the directory, but it has the wrong feed. How do they go about reporting that and getting it updated?
My understanding is that there is a link on the publisher page where you can send us feedback, and we're actually working on a more direct path for feedback, and so we're going to be rolling that out really shortly, where that's way more apparent. So we did get a ton of feedback yesterday, and we're going to make that even easier in the next couple days here.
I know there's the next.yahoo.com link.
There's basically a variety of mechanisms. There's
Okay.
the search blog. There's the next link. We did put something, I think, in the publisher pages, but I think we had a handful of mechanisms, and we're trying to make that simpler for people, so we get more direct feedback.
Okay, so right now, if there's an issue with your feed, go to the publisher page, and that's the best place to start.
The publisher page, or a lot of people are also using the next.yahoo.com, and there's a discussion board link right next to the podcast announcement.
What is Yahoo going to be doing over the next few months to promote podcasting within Yahoo?
Certainly, one of the things that we're going to be doing is basically working on integration of podcast content throughout Yahoo. So there's a lot of places on the Yahoo network, so where we think that makes sense, and so we're working with teams across the company to sort of figure out, where we should put that stuff and how we enable that. So there's all the stuff that we can do on the media properties itself. One of the things that I think a lot of people may not have seen or may not have gotten enough attention yesterday, people were very excited about the website, but we also basically deliver that same experience in the Yahoo Music Engine. From our website, you can go and download the Music Engine, and that's really well integrated right now into the Yahoo Music Engine. That's our jukebox software. So that integration is right there today, and it's really nice because the Yahoo Music Engine is a great piece of jukebox software. You can put all your CDs on your computer using that. So it's a great music player. We've integrated podcasting right into that. And then also the Yahoo Music Engine happens to be the place where you can sign up for, if you want to, the Yahoo Music Unlimited service, which is our music subscription service. That's something that we've already done, is we've had this very nice integration into the Yahoo Music Engine. And in some ways, actually, I think that's the best way to experience podcasting, because it's very powerful to be in your audio player and do a search and find something very specific. In fact, we used your podcast to demo this. We as we talked to press and other people, one of the demonstrations that we did was we said, hey, let's search for Walt Mossberg, and the Wall Street Journal columnist. So we would do a search for Walt Mossberg right in the Yahoo Music Engine search. There's not a podcast that he had, but he was interviewed by you, and that's the first link that pops up, and then we would just click listen, and then you'd be listening to your interview with Walt and Katie right in the Yahoo Music Engine. So it's a really sort of direct connection to all of this content on the internet, to basically your audio collection.
Well, I appreciate that. Any press I can get, I appreciate. Like any podcaster,
And it's also just a really easy way for consumers who want to take that stuff on their MP3 device to basically sync and go. So because we've integrated it into the player, you can find stuff, subscribe to stuff. So when you sync, you're going to have all the latest podcasts.
Right now you have subscribe and it says free. Is there plans in the future to help podcasters that want to generate revenue from their podcasts?
The reason that we say it's free right now next to the subscribe button is that as we showed this to some users, they saw a subscribe button. Particularly for people who weren't familiar with podcasting, they looked at subscribe as potentially I might have to pay for that. So the real reason that we have that in there is that there was just some confusion of, when I click subscribe, what's going to happen? Are you going to ask for my credit card? And we just wanted to make it crystal clear that, hey, this stuff is free. A lot of people, I think, are talking about how do you make money with podcasting?
That's the number one question I get on my site. How do I make money?
I'd be curious to hear your answer.
I get questions from people that haven't even launched their first podcast yet. They go, I'm thinking of doing a podcast. How do I make money from it?
People haven't been doing this for very long. I think it's easy to get ahead of ourselves. I think that what we believe is that we're still in the phase of we need to kind of grow the audience, get it out there in front of people, show people how convenient this is, what the great variety of content is. Once people start to get that, and you really start to build a big audience, then there become just a ton of different ways to make money on this stuff. But I would say that we're still in the phase of building that audience. Certainly there's lots and lots of people, millions of people that are already doing this. But in the scheme of things, there's a lot more people that listen to radio or do other stuff. So once you have an audience, I think the ways to make money on this will become clearer and more apparent. And what we believe is right now we're still in that let's go build an audience phase. And that's really what we're trying to do with Yahoo Podcast, is get out there in front of people, make it super easy for people to find that content and listen to it in the way they want to.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
We've read lots of great feedback on the blogs and have heard a lot of great comments from people, so we're really excited about that. We feel like this is, we're kind of joining a community here. the podcasting community has definitely been one of those grassroots phenomena, and so we're very pleased to participate here, and hopefully we can bring some value to the table. That's our goal here. There are just a lot of little features and that kind of stuff that maybe people haven't had time to discover about the product. One of my favorite features is if you're an Internet Explorer user. A lot of people I know are using Firefox these days, but there's a great feature in Internet Explorer. When you listen to a podcast, you can actually speed up the audio. If you're long-winded like me, perhaps, and you want to go through that faster, you can play it at 1.5 speed or even 2 speed, and you can still understand the audio. So that's kind of a cool little feature that a lot of people haven't yet picked up on.
As you shifted it up in speed, you're dropping the pitch to keep the voice from sounding like Alvin and the Chipmunks, I take it?
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. You want your chipmunks. You can basically, you hear people at pretty much their normal pitch. You can really listen to a lot more podcasts that way. So that's a really cool feature of the site that maybe people haven't picked up on in the first day or so. The Yahoo Music Engine integration, I think, is really great. That's something that people should know about. And one of the things about the Yahoo Music Engine that we made really, really easy, you can add a podcast to a playlist. So say if you have a commute playlist, when you add a podcast to a playlist, those episodes are automatically going to be added to that playlist as new stuff comes. That's a little harder to do in other programs. So we made that super easy. So you can say, hey, here's my commute playlist, here's all the podcasts, and so when you sync and go, you know you're going to have the latest stuff in the playlist already set up.
Well, it sounds like you've taken a lot of steps to help the listener, which is a good thing.
I mean, we're excited to be able to do Yahoo Podcasts. We're definitely trying to bring an audience, make it easier. We're definitely interested in feedback. We'll make the feedback links a lot clearer on our site so we can get more of it. But we and I've really appreciated the community's feedback that we've already received.
Podcasting community is not shy about giving feedback.
We've learned that. But they have a lot of great ideas, and they're very enthusiastic, and they're very passionate about what they do. And those are the most fun communities to be involved in because people love what they do, and it's very creative and exciting.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for being part of the show today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, folks, that concludes our interview with Joe, the Senior Director of Product Management for Yahoo. I'd like to thank Joe for coming on the show and also thank Megan for helping set up the interview. For those of you that have not gone over to podcasts.yahoo.com, that's podcasts.yahoo.com, I highly recommend you go over and check out the directory. And while you're there, you've obviously made it this far into the show. It means one of two things. It means either A, you've been tied down and forced to listen to the show as some form of torture, or B, you actually enjoyed the interview. If it is the latter, while you're over at podcasts.yahoo.com, please make sure you subscribe to Podcast 411 and listen to us there. Help us move up in the rankings. Also rate us. Give us a good rating. We really appreciate that. At the end of today's show, we're going to have a promo from the 6620 West Kid cast, so please stick around for that. On our next show, our guest will be Ed Roberts from the Kansas City Weather Podcast, so please come back on Saturday, October 15th for that show. Now, as you know, I've been making call-outs to you, so I'm going to make that call-out again for your feedback and help on the show. If you have a tech tip or if you have a funny story about how you've explained podcasting, please send those or links to them to podcast411@gmail.com. Really appreciate it. Well, I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, I'm your host, Rob, from Podcast 411, reminding you to listen different.
Hi everybody, this is Mike from the 6620 West Kidcast, and we do a G-rated, kid-friendly family show with me, my wife, and my 4 kids. I thought the best way to promote our podcast was to play what other people are saying about our show. How about Dan Klass from the Bitterest Pill? Here's what he had to say after he listened to our show.
For about 24 hours, I could not be vertical without wanting to hurl.
Yikes. Okay. Don and Drew, maybe?
There was weird tension.
There was domestic abuse.
Okay, there was no domestic abuse. This is a very kid-friendly family show, funny comedy, variety, ha ha ha, there's no domestic abuse. What about Mark from Tartan Podcast? I know he listens to us all the time.
It was a real privilege during the month of July to be able to play their music and to let you guys hear the quality of the music that's available from bands and artists in Scotland.
Music? We don't play music, Mark. And we're not Scottish. You were supposed to do a promo for the 6620 West Kidcast. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay, last chance. Richard Vobes from the Richard Vobes radio show. I know he listens to me all the time. Here's what he had to say about our show.
And Utah Mike, who does a little family podcast, which I did get to listen.
Yes, I listened to that. Sounded great.
All his kids and his wife.
Yeah,
he was.
Absolutely. In fact, I think I did some voiceovers for him. The 6620 West Kidcast, and you can find them out at the 6620 West Podcast.libsyn.com.